Jigna. So we are bringing back our brain man encore, or Dr. Patel, to get a little more into this discussion around the happiness and the brain and choices. So are you ready to learn some more?
I'm super stoked. Let's do it.
All right, let's talk to Encore. People are watching you if you're unemployed and you have a family who's watching you, like, why haven't you gotten a job yet? What have you been doing? You know, what do you do with your time? And you're like, look, I've applied to almost 100 companies.
Oh.
And, you know, so you start to, like, that plays on you, like you're saying, that people watching you. Yeah. So, I mean, what should family members or friends be thinking of when they're talking to their friends who are feeling down about not having found a job yet?
Yeah. But I would say that, look, this is the way I would want everybody who views this to think about it. Anything that's happened in your life, you just need to realize that if you don't get sort of a focused approach on it from the next day, what happens is that your brain has to do something. Okay, when you wake up in the morning, you can't just have a quiet brain. Your brain has never been quiet. It never will be quiet until you die. So because it can't stay quiet, it's going to take your energies either in a positive direction or it's going to take them in a negative direction. So what I'm saying is that what you should expect is that if you've had some despair, right, if you've had some kind of an event, it's perfectly fair for you to sort of feel that pain, you know, and you can experience that, let it go, cry through, whatever, that's fine. Nobody's denying it. Like, it's not that we're not robots. But what I'm saying is that that is the default. It's going to be the default brain functioning that's going to happen unless you intervene it with something else, right? And so what I'm saying is that, again, it's about the seesaw. You got to bring it back to this level, and that's going to be your constant effort, because your brain is in that scenario not working for you. It's not looking at your long-term plans. It doesn't care about your health. And that's that reptilian brain. It just wants to scare the crap out of you and wants to keep you in despair. You know, this is how, in a sense, we're so intelligent species. We're such an intelligent species, but this is something, when you think about it from an evolutionary standpoint, this is billions of years of evolution, yet the major parts of our brain, in working with our intellect and this sort of reptilian brain, all that is very new still. Okay, it's only a couple 100 million years old. It's very new in the context of how, you know, the entire evolutionary spectrum has been. And so you have to realize that it's very error prone, and, you know, it doesn't always know what it's doing for you. And so this conscious effort is very important. And whatever it is, wake up the next day, break apart your pain. And I think one of the biggest things is, you know, you got to start writing stuff down. I mean, pick up a book, start putting that stuff down. What am I feeling? Why am I feeling this way? What do I think happened to me, right? That I feel this way. And this isn't, because, again, like I said, you know, you don't just wake up and you're like, oh yeah, I'm going to be happy today. You know, I'm going to forget everything. That's not what this is. Like, when you feel pain, when you feel real pain, it tells you where your values are. Like, that's where it's a representation of where your values have been sort of challenged. And that's what's coming out as pain. So you need to sit down and you need to start kind of putting that stuff together. And look, it's very difficult if you're getting by paycheck to paycheck. That part is very difficult. To me, what bothers me is that what I think is a lot more opportunity for people who aren't depending paycheck to paycheck, but still kind of feel like, wow, like my husband lost his job, and now I'm the only one that's managing the household, and I just, you know, like, nobody else has it that way. Like, my friends don't have it that way. Like, and their lifestyles are so much better. They're going on these vacations. Those thoughts is where I think there's more opportunity to kind of work on this mental game, versus the people who kind of feel like, okay, no, I'm not going to be able to pay my rent, you know, tomorrow because of this sort of situation. that's definitely it's at the very basic level, right, of the hierarchy of happiness. You got to maintain that household, and that money obviously has to kind of come, like, that person just needs to basically get up the next day. I got to find my job. That's it. Like, I mean, that's my focus. I'm zoned in. I got to find my job. But yeah, I think, it's not easy, but one has to understand, like, if I don't take an active role in this, starting from very quickly after your moment of despair, then my brain is essentially going to spiral in, the health of my cells are going down. My sleep is getting ruined. Inflammation is taking over. My brain isn't staying protected like it was. I always sort of think of this example where you could be playing with your children and getting a certain level of joy one day. Next day, COVID hits. You go out and play with your kids, or well, COVID pandemic sort of hits. You're put you've been sort of laid off or what have you. You go play out with your kid, you won't be able to exude that level of joy, right? Why is that? Because your fear system is now taken over front and center. And so that's inhibiting where your happiness really comes from really getting out and making it. So it's always challenging. It's going to challenge everything that you value in life and find happiness from. It's going to challenge that. And so it's going to be on you to sort of say, how do I not let that happen? Because let me tell you, the brain is this. This is a line I've heard so many times, throughout my education. The brain is a system that, either you use it or you lose it.
Okay,
right?
So now you bring me to a question I got here. But I'll let you finish.
But that's what it is. In essence, if you decide that, no, I'm not gonna let go of where my happiness comes from. I'm gonna still go out. I'm gonna play with my kids. I'm gonna go and do my walks. I'm gonna do all these things. If you do those things, then those networks in your brain strengthen. They become strengthened, and they become valuable, right? That stuff matters to you. If you stop doing those things, right? If you don't put your heart into them, they're going to become weaker networks. So the moment they become weaker, they don't activate themselves. You could come back 5 years later and you could say, like, well, now I made it, and I'm just going to be happy again. That's not going to happen, because those networks are going to be diminished now, because you stop. You're going to have to build it back, and that's not easy. I mean, and when you're an adult, it's not easy to build those networks. So if you have existing networks, you have to maintain them. It's very important to maintain those, otherwise they start diminishing.
That's been kind of my fear, like not working has been like, am I going to get dumb?
Oh,
yeah.
Well, because your brain, right? So, I mean, and this is, I think, Jigna and I, we've talked about, we learned some new skills. Some of our previous episodes, we've talked about ways to learn. We talked about one about learning in the time of Corona, like how there's programs out there for you if you're like picking up new either cooking skills to piano lessons to new business topics or things to stay sharp that way. Like, because I think like that, I'm telling you, like I have a snarky 12-year-old who told me one day when she was arguing with me, she was doing it to help keep my mental faculties sharp since I wasn't at work. So, that's what makes me wonder about like what happens to the brain in that perspective when you're not doing all of those things you're doing. Is it going to take you longer to get back in the workplace and get back in that groove?
No, I don't think so. I mean, especially in our age, of where you have so many things available to you online. What I get paid for isn't really what kind of keeps my brain, sharp. I don't think that that's true. You could, and sometimes people think that way, but no, it's not true.
That's a fear of yours.
You have to stay committed to your growth, though, right?
Yeah.
Like, you're gonna get to see, like, I'm gonna pick up on this skill. Like, you learned how to do this sort of video stuff for this channel. That level of like, engagement about like, I want to learn this thing, and so I'm gonna figure it out. Now that you can't, that's great. Like that, if you do, you don't want to ever lose that, right? It's the fire that like people shouldn't lose. and that's something unique. Like that's an intellectual thing about that you don't want to lose. Is like, listen, you give me a problem, I know that I have the this sort of this intellectual fire in me where I'm going to go in and find out how to do it, and I'm going to figure that out. Like if you feel like you're losing that, then maybe you can exercise it. But there's absolutely no reason why someone should be losing brain cells because they don't have a job.
Okay.
So the other component to what Jennifer is saying is there are individuals that are out there that have a really high need of sense of accomplishment, and a lot of them get it through their jobs, right? A lot of them, that is what kind of keeps them going. I know actually have a friend who is it's very important to that individual who, if they don't feel like they're contributing to the job of society, whatever, they feel very down and depressed at times. So is there a way you can sort of stop feeling that way when you're in that sort of situation where you're laid off or you're not working? How is that a possibility?
Yeah. Look, I think, and I wrote that down as one of those things where I believe, like, purpose and meaning is so important to your
Right.
like your spiritual health.
Yeah.
Right. I always think like you can do everything you can and try and build this like bodily health, and that includes the brain's health, right? So people do whatever, if you do yoga, if you do exercise, whatever it is, like that's all bodily health, but that spiritual health is something else entirely. And I think to me, like that's purpose. And it's not easy. I read this. Somebody had written this on some article once, but I really loved it. But she was talking about the fact that she lost her job at Google or something like that, and I think she was in despair about it and what have you. And she realized that, I spent like 5 years at Google. Everything I experienced is still my own. Like I walked away with that. Like I didn't leave that on the table. And so I think that what people need to not do is sort of think that as long as they hold that job, that's the only reason that they have purpose. Like that's the only reason that they have a right to the purpose that job served. I'll give you an example. So I work for a pharmaceutical company, and our purpose is to create medicines that genuinely change people's lives. And then that's fine, and that's a great mission, and it's a great great purpose to have, and that's what gets me out of bed. Is that's what I want to do. But if I were to then, be laid off from that, I should not feel that I can't still work towards that purpose, right? So what I should do is essentially sit down with myself and sort of say, what are my talents and what are the skills that I have? And what are the abilities that are available to me where I can continue to contribute to that purpose?
Right.
Because like I said, I already walked away with a ton of experience, right? And so hopefully some people kind of walk away with some level of experience, but maybe you don't even have that. Maybe you lost experience, but you love the purpose. You love the purpose of that company and you love their message. They don't own that purpose, right? That purpose is for anyone to take and anyone to do that, right? So, okay, I won't be able to develop medicines. Okay, that's fine. I don't have a company to do that. I don't have the infrastructure to do that. But maybe I could collaborate with some people to create an app that would help people learn a little bit better about medicine. It could be anything. Like you could, in this world of technology, like I'm on Twitter, there are so many people who are running companies who literally just reach out on Twitter and say, submit your ideas to me. For every $10,000 that you put, I will put 10x the amount. So if I like your idea, we'll collaborate, we'll do it. I mean, there's people like doing all kinds of stuff.
It's true. What you're saying about, having that fulfillment, just finding it outside. And I think Jennifer and I did that with this podcast, right? It was important for us to express ourselves in a way we knew how to do it, but also sort of fill that karma quotient that we keep talking about. And I like the creativity portion, which allows, this allows me to do it with, the posts and the design and whatnot. And Jennifer really enjoys the research part of it, and the a lot of the just a knowledge base and growing as well. And she obviously does all the editing part, and that's her secret life, so
Yeah.
So we found it. I don't know if it's necessarily that easy for everybody, but to your point, find, write it down. Is what I got of it is write it down, see what you can do with things that are accessible to you, even if it is just volunteering initially, see how that kind of.
And I think I heard you, like, setting small goals, like don't get overwhelmed by this big task, because I think part of it too is we've found too, like we're searching for a job, we have families that we're taking care of kids and homeschooling them, and the household and all those other things on top. So like, we're still really busy with this other part of our life that seemed to fit nicely in that other box kind of back in the beginning. But the other big box got so disrupted that it was learning how to navigate. And we've added a few more smaller boxes. And sometimes that feels like even more. Some days I feel like I'm busier than I was when I was actually working. Between the podcast and job searching and those tasks there. So yeah, it's a little, but again, I think like you're saying, putting some small goals, and I just picked up a pen to talk with. That's great. I don't know why.
So
but it's personal branding, right? At the end of the day, like, I feel like this is like people kind of give up on that. Like, they kind of think like, oh, I have a job and I'm
content.
like their identity shouldn't be the job. And
because nobody wants to die and on your tombstone it say this person was a great worker, like employee, right? That's
right.
Not how I want to be remembered. I don't want to be like, oh, wow, she was such a great contributor at work. I mean,
right.
I want to be remembered for a lot more than
However,
that.
there's a huge focus on that, right? You're not successful unless you're working crazy hours, or you're answering your emails at midnight, or whatever it might be. Especially in the new millennia, is that the right terminology? In year 2000 and beyond, right? It seems like there's such a push, like all these successful people continue to talk about, hey, I was successful because I didn't have a personal life, and there is this talk about work-life balance and continued talk about it, but what is it really? There's no such thing, and the emphasis on that these leaders are putting on not having a personal life is, I think, is a detriment to our society as a whole. Over and over again, you see medical professionals saying that's not a good thing, mental health professionals. So yeah, I didn't have a question there. I just wanted to point that out.
No, I agree. I think you have to stick to your own story.
Yeah.
And I think that ultimately, like, be confident about the story you already have, and feel like, I've already proved myself. Like, that's where you want people to be, is that you're like, oh, I've been through stuff. Like, I've seen this, I've done that, I've achieved this and I've achieved that. So by the time you get laid off, or you have a certain situation in life where I'm like, oh, I'm not on that track, whatever track that people think you should be, it doesn't feel so heavy, right?
Yeah.
Then it doesn't feel so heavy because you're like, I already made it. Like, like I know I've already done a lot in life. So you know what? I'm just gonna, this happened, cool, I'll figure it out. Like, I'm gonna, what it is, whatever it is. But if you kind of build that, that personal brand, then that will help you through everything, because it's already done. It's already built. Right. Nobody can take it away from you, right? So I think that's a big thing. I think that's the advice I would give everybody. But all people become so obsessed with, like, I work for this company, I work for Tesla, and I work for whatever, and we're onto stuff. That's fine, but anything could happen tomorrow, and then are you going to be left without any sort of direction? Because at the end of the day, it's one person running that company, and not anything can happen. So you have to have a broader more personal agenda to life, or, a more broader purpose to life, that can be taken away from you, by a job.
Outside
So.
of it, yeah. You just inspired me. I think I'm gonna be the dude from The Big Lebowski. That's gonna be my mission. Here, man. It's all good, right?
That's right.
Whatever happens. So yeah, so I want to pivot a little bit and kind of go back to relationships. So and with specifically around our coworkers, people we had, for years build this connection, this relationship, and then all of a sudden those ties are severed to no fault of either parties, right? Jennifer and I have she was my colleague, and we both worked for Jennifer. Jennifer was our manager, and she's no longer. We don't see her on a daily basis, there is that sense of wanting to connect, and it's just not as easy as you had wanted to be. So what happens there? How do we sort of cope with that?
Yeah, that's tough. I was reading into this one massive 75-year study that was done by Harvard. It's an ongoing study. It's been 75 years, incredible. But it's a study that was done to really identify what are some of the characteristics that being, significant to people's happiness in life. And they picked some people. They picked poor kids from really bad neighborhoods, and then they picked really wealthy kids, and basically looked at the trajectories of these. And ultimately, what ended up coming up was not money or anything of that. It was relationships, and it's just the kinds of relationships that you can have, that the people had in life, whether it was coworkers, friends, family. All those is what defined people's happiness. Relationships are, I think they're important. I mean, I've done this myself, where it's just you kind of go from one stage, graduate school or one particular job, whatever, and everyone just keeps moving on. It's funny. A lot of times people say oh yeah, let's stay in touch, and then you just move on with life. It doesn't happen. I think it's important. I think there should be a strong effort to sort of say hey, let's just genuinely stay in touch. I actually put it recently put on my own calendar to say reach out to some of these people from my grad school and those sort of things. When I had some time off, I said I put it on my work calendar. Call somebody. Yeah, time goes by and the relationships are gone. You don't run into people all the time. People you connect with, you're just not going to be able to run into people like that so frequently. So I don't know. I don't know how to, if you can't get in touch with them and can't do that, tough thing to swallow. But there should be every effort to kind of gauge with people that you did feel I really loved this coworker. They just had values that I think are just so good. I need to stay in touch with this person, and usually that's all it takes. If you just kind of prioritize it, then who's going to deny that, no, I don't want to talk to you. We were we were friends at work, but now you're not here anymore. I don't want to talk to you. That would never happen. I don't know. So if you put that effort in, it should work out, right?
Yeah, that's a good point. Is take some time to continue those relationships is what I'm hearing, and it's true. And both Jennifer and I continue doing that. And I will say it gives me a little bit of joy, and ultimately, I guess that's what the goal is, right? Just to keep ourselves at a happy place. That's good.
So I think one of the questions I ask, I think too, is is it about giving yourself permission to be happy? Because I think sometimes, I wonder, I mean, I'm a pretty happy-go-lucky person. There are times that I throw people off when I get angry or sad. More sad throws people really off. But I think sometimes it's hard. I think, okay, if I act or if I'm happy and I show that to other people, are they going to think something's wrong with me because I don't have a job yet? And I'm not, how, and I try not to worry about what they think, but we all go there. And so how do you manage that own perception for yourself and your brain?
Well, look, it has to be genuine, right? I honestly don't believe that like I think like people have this misconception about what positivity is, right? So positive, people think like, all right, I'm gonna wake up with like these positive affirmations, and I'm just gonna kind of force myself to kind of behave that way. I think people can see through that, right? At some point, people will see through it that you sort of just are sort of forcing that, and maybe in the beginning, like that's important. Like if you kind of like felt a little bit despair, you're just trying to force the system to kind of like, all right, let's just go in this positive direction. But you can't do that on a recurring basis. So at some point, it's got to become genuine, where they start seeing like wow, like she's not even earning anything, and she's like, how come she's like positive? Like that's that's the lesson we want people to learn, is that it's not what you do that makes you happy. It's who you are, right? Like it's your character. And like I wrote about this in one of my articles, is that people think that certain outcomes in life, and certain images of life are what leads to their happiness. That's not true at all. It's your character. The reason you look happy is that your character is there for, it loves the people that are around you, that appreciates the very simple things. Like you taste a certain kind of coffee and you're like, that's like really good coffee.
I get really happy when I have Jigna's chai.
Yeah.
That makes
there
me
you
happy.
Go. See, I mean, how many people
I get happy just thinking about it.
There you go. See, that's what it is. You care about the simple things, and you focus on your today, right? That's who you are. Like you wake up and you sort of things like, what are the small things that are, you don't even question it. You essentially just say, you just react to things in that way.
One of my favorite all-time musicals is Rent. And I love the line, "No day but today." And like, that's kind of been my mantra. I try to think about things like that.
This is, clinical psychologists will tell you this. And this is fundamentally the issue, is that people are in despair because they worry about an uncertain future.
Yeah.
Okay. And that is what they tell you immediately. They tell every patient is that take it a day at a time. And that's what people don't, I don't know if a lot of people grab that, but what they're saying is that start noticing things around you. Like, what is this? Like what's already around you that is waiting for you to come and take joy from. I'll give you a personal example. When COVID happened, I've been in my house for like 3 years now, and I would travel a lot for work, etc. As I mentioned, when COVID happened, and then I was like, sitting at home. There were moments where I was just kind of like that purpose is a little lost. I'm a little distracted because I was following on Twitter. I was like looking at all the data with COVID, and I'm just getting anxious and I'm thinking about all this stuff. For 3 years, my mom and my wife have been kind of growing all kinds of stuff in our garden, right? We have this, like all these kind of vegetables, all these kind of stuff. It's a pleasant place. It took me almost 3 years to go out there and purge myself, like in the middle of all this, all these trees and all these plants and all this stuff. And it just felt amazing. It just completely felt amazing. Like it really did. It was transcendental. Like hearing the leaves and just hearing the birds. Like I had no idea there were birds in like my neighborhood. I was able to observe almost 5 different kinds of birds, and I was take note of them. I was like taking note of their eye color and everything, all that stuff. But this is what I mean, is that you have to sort of put yourself in those kind of positions where you're like, right, I'm going to go in that direction, and I'm going to notice things
be
today.
In the moment, I think too. Like that's so important. We've heard that before as well. Like I'll talk about
take a moment, smell the roses.
Back in running, like so many people run with headphones on, right? And like people are like, I don't run with headphones, because when I first ran Disney, they had said, I was told at first you can't run with any music, but then now I think they allow you at Disney races. But it's like a hazard because there's so many people in that race at Disney, and then they actually open the park while you're running too. Like, so they don't want you to run with any headphones. So I stopped running with headphones, and people are like, how do you do that? And I'm like, what started to happen was, like you said, I saw birds and trees and things I'd never seen in a neighborhood that I just kept running by day after day. And then all of a sudden I learned, like, to me, it's like that very Zen, like be in the moment space. And like you can, like, I think it's choosing, like you said, focusing on today, but also being in that moment. Because I think if you be in a moment, it doesn't allow you to be anxious about what happens next.
Exactly.
And you're not really taught how to be in the moment, and that, growing up, and, people always tell you, you just live, for today. And
we give kids this plan, like
great words that are out there and phrases, but how? Like, how?
But we tell kids, like, you got to go to school, you got to finish high school, you got to go to college, you got to do this.
Future. Yeah, this is for your future. This is for your future. And parents don't necessarily teach their kids, or teachers may not necessarily do that. Or they may give you the sort of the common after whatever is like, live for today, or and live in the moment, but you're really not taught that, and not in school, not at your homes, and that would be my request to anyone that's listening is learn it yourself. I'm still trying to figure it out, but if you do have family and friends and kids, then teach them. If you know how to do it, teach them.
Sounds like they'll go back to the idea of writing it down.
Yeah.
So get you back in that
writing
moment.
It down. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And when you're so busy thinking about the future, it's just an energy thing. Like you said, Jennifer, like, I think that if your mind is sort of going in thinking about the future, the energy is dispensed over there. It is a zero-sum game, because now there's less energy to be present, right? And so you don't show up to the project or whatever it is you're doing with your full heart, right? Because your energy has been kind of burnt out a little bit thinking about the future.
Well, and I think, and going back to when I talk about the people that are in that shark tank, right, that being swarmed by the sharks, like the energy, or even when Jigna's saying the energy, they're trying to stay above water, like, because they're worried about the next day and the next day. I often wonder, like I said, I think even organizations, if I look at organizational behavior, like the energy they spend worrying about tomorrow could end up hurting them as well. Why so much about companies we're told, like, you need to be thinking about your next thing, but think about how are you doing it today to make it appropriate for tomorrow. So it's just like constant yin and yang pool, right? So.
Well, I think we have an attachment to controlling everything in our life.
What?
We want to control.
I don't know what you're talking about.
we are obsessed with control.
Yeah.
And we want to control the future. We want to control the past, the future. There was this psychological experiment that was done which I still have to read into it, because I heard a psychologist kind of talk about it on YouTube, but he said that they took two groups of people, one group that won the lottery, and the other group that became paraplegic, right? So paralysis in the body, like from an accident or whatever. They surveyed them a year after they had these incidences, right? Who won the lottery or went paraplegic, and they went and assessed them for their happiness. Now, you would assume that the people who won the lottery would be happier than the people that were paraplegic. Their happiness was the same. Their happiness was the same. So how is that possible, right? So it's completely in your control. It's
more
completely
money,
in
more
your
problems.
More money, more problems. Most people winning lotteries end up devastating their lives, actually, right?
Yes, yeah.
But that's a strong lesson. But yet people are obsessed with, like, well, how am I going to get to my retirement? What's the value of the dollar going to be? And like, are we going to be able to have health insurance? And if people obsess on that stuff so much, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't live your life like in a sensible way, but you should be thinking about those things today. There's so many people who are obsessed about the future, and yet they don't even call their parents, today. And so, I'm like, well, what kind of person are you going to be in the future if you can't even call your parents? That's the way I look at it, is what kind of person are you today? What you should be doing is, let me work on some of these things and just build my character. So if you keep building your character, how is your future ever going to be anything but happy? That's my thing, is like, if you just focus that my character today is way better than it was yesterday, if you just maintain that level of growth day to day, then how are you not going to be happy? You've consistently been growing, like all the way into the end of your life.
So
right?
building those relationships seems to be one of the higher priorities, is what I'm hearing is, and thanks for saying that, because I do spend a lot of time reaching out to people and friends and colleagues and whatnot, and a lot of times I wonder, like, is this a waste of time? Because sometimes you don't get the reciprocation, right? I have a rule that I've used for years now to protect myself from just vulnerability, is the 3-strike rule. In most cases, I use that as, I'll try 3 different occasions, really try in connecting. And if I don't get a reciprocation, I tend to just move on and say, well, maybe they're just not into me,
Right.
And some friends may just no longer be into you, and that's okay too. But that's important, maybe my happiness lies, me specifically, on building those relationships, and that could potentially be my key value in life. I'm reflecting right now.
Well, no, and then it comes with experience, right? So you'll end up realizing like, oh, this is going well. Like when I talk to this person, I think things are going well, and like that's what it is. I think relationships are more important than people think they are. I really do. So.
And relationship qualities change too, right? When you're, some people are just have this amazing sense of, value and relationships, and they know it's profound that they know how, what they need in their life to be happy, or, and I don't know if I was ever that way, and it's taken me a long time to get there, but I feel like my quality of relationships have gotten so much better, especially in the last few years than ever before. It's the focus, right? You focus on that, because you lose something here, you shift your focus.
I'm the same way. Like I'm a very introspective person, right? So then I actually like to spend more time in my head, and than I do with other people. And so it's very, and so it's an effort. It's a thing that you realize, like, well, okay, I clearly am not grasping this part of it, so what else can I do so that my, it can align better with whatever I get my energies from, right?
So does it help you? So for individuals that are, more internal or introspective,
introverts,
introverts, does it help introverts who, it's not as easy for them to develop relationships, to maybe try, doing an activity versus just getting together and chit-chatting? Like, what helps introverts, in terms of building relationships?
I think that introverts need to kind of just, they need to come up with reasons for why this is important.
Okay.
I think that's helped me, right? So I just kind of put value in putting myself out there to sort of just understand and get a picture of other people's lives, because to me, then I feel like, there's something that I can learn from that. So that sort of, because to me, one of my biggest values is just intellection, just learning about things, learning about people, learning about how behavior happens.
So you and I could nerd out for hours talking about human behavior, because I think it's fascinating. Like, I like to listen or meet people I don't know and just ask them questions, and if they're from different places, and understand like
it's great, and
just hear what their experiences are.
You leverage that, right? This is what I value. How can I leverage that to then go out and do this other thing, which is socialize with people, right? Because I used to think like, well, socializing is a waste of time. I should just be at home, like reading a book. And I kind of flipped it then, right? Then I kind of think like, well, you know what? Let me leverage that. Like, I can still get things out of people if I just go out and connect with them and, develop those relationships. And that happens to me all the time now, right?
So we were talking a lot about happiness, and you mentioned a couple times some Harvard studies. I'm just curious. So like, I'm familiar with Sean Acor and his happiness advantage. And I'm just curious, like, what are some, if you're familiar with Sean's work or other thought leaders who've been out there in the happiness perspective? Like who some of those are? That people, if they want to learn more, who else would you recommend reading, or your articles? Where can we find those?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, you could come to my my blog, at the Overman Letter. You can find me on Twitter at Dopa1120. So
is that for dopamine?
Dopa's for dopamine. This is something I came up with back when I was in college, which is still hung around, and total nerd.
Love it.
Emailed and tags. So I like Dan Gilbert. I think is someone who's published a few books on happiness. And yeah, I really like a lot of the perspectives that he kind of brings into this. There's someone else that I ran into. He's a bit of a controversial person, but he's a Canadian psychologist, and I've just kind of blanked out on his name.
You want to take a second, look him up? We can. It's the beauty of editing.
Yeah. I was trying to look him up. Yeah, I can't. But I pull it from a lot of different places. A lot of what I do is also like, historical philosophy, as well. And so you kind of, I read a lot about, Stoic philosophy, if you want. Friedrich Nietzsche. Nietzsche is one of my all-time favorite philosophers, and I know he's talked a lot about happiness, and that's where I kind of got the name Overman for my newsletter.
So there's some different things. If people want to learn some more, you can go. We'll put out there too for our listeners where to find.
Yes.
We'll be sure to share
on Twitter and your
I appreciate that. Thank
Overman
you.
letter, right? Is that what you said?
Overman. Yep.
Overman.
The Overman
Okay.
letter.
Yeah. Awesome.
That's a lot of information, Ankur. Thank you so much for joining. I will tell you, I have a brain crush on your brain. So I don't want your wife to be jealous, but it's just your brain that I have a crush on. So I'm so glad you were able to join and just share your thoughts, and we really enjoyed it. So before you head out, Jennifer, I think we should do our fortune cookie time.
Fortune cookie time, and let's see if it can wield some more happiness for us. So
let's go ahead and do a fortune for Ankur today.
All right.
All right. This is yours, Ankur. All right. What does this say?
Fortune says,
anyone can start, only the thoroughbred will finish.
Ooh.
You must be working on some big initiative, and your thoroughbred brain that we have a crush on is going to the finish line there. There you go.
Sounds good. No pressure.
So are you starting anything today? And just make sure you keep to it and finish. So just heads up.
Yeah, nothing on the plan. So I'll start my lunch.
Okay.
We'll go from there.
There you go.
Finish your lunch, you'll be ready to go.
All right.
I appreciate it.
Are we going to finish ours? Let him know what ours are?
Yep. Go ahead,
Okay.
Jennifer.
Let's go.
All right, let's go.
Okay, we'll both do ours together. How's that?
I didn't make a mess this time. Ooh, mine is good this time. I
Okay,
get really
go ahead.
cheesy ones, usually. Mine says be unconventional. Mine says be unconventional, even visionary.
I like that
See
one.
that one there? Like, can I get it in focus? Almost in focus. No, not quite. I tried.
Mine
That's a good one.
is commitment is the stuff character is made of, the power to change the face of things. We have to be committed to this podcast is what I'm hearing.
But, no, I think it means being committed to being happy.
Yes.
And taking those changes for your character, because we just talked about all of those things right there. So that you
Absolutely.
can choose and know what that means. And
That's
choose
right.
it.
That's right.
That's pretty profound. So, all right. Well,
Thank you so much, Ankur. We
Yes.
You're
thoroughly
welcome.
enjoyed this.
Likewise.
Come join us any other time you feel like you want to talk, because we'd love to have you again.
Yeah, if you have a new
Love
thought,
it.
perspective, let us know. Love to hear it. So,
Absolutely.
appreciate it.
Absolutely, guys.
Wow, I meant it when I said I have a brain crush on Dr. Encore. It's just a brain crush, so if Mrs. Encore, please don't be mad at me.
Well, it's like how I like, it's like everybody knows, or not everybody knows here, but probably some of my friends know, like, I think Benedict Cumberbatch is really cute, but you know what attracted me to him was really when he had the nerdy brain. It was the Sherlock Holmes character with the brain going and tying things. So it's that same kind of perspective of like how somebody's brain can work like that to have so much great information. And then the irony of it is he's talking about the brain.
Exactly. It's interesting. You know, you and I are similar in the sense of we are attracted to individuals who have sort of that, you know, the brain or always have that sort of a high cognitive presence in a sense. You know, it's just makes for a great conversation with those individuals. So it's always nice to find folks that have the same sort of mindset.
Well, and then not only that, it's like, I think what we really learned from this last one is, again, how our mindset really does have the ability. We don't say to ourselves, like you're saying, when we go to bed at night, we don't say, I'm going to wake up happy. Yeah. And so, because your brain never shuts off, right? So I think it's like, how do you keep that brain engaged and put it in the right energy focus? And we've talked about that in so many different ways on so many different episodes, right? We've talked about even from conversations of our coworkers or friends that we know. And when we talked with Courtney Ramsey, we talked about it with Debbie with the Reiki. We've talked about it with David and
Adi Bakchin. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So many times it keeps coming back up, and relationships too. So like, I think, you know, I'm starting to see some trends here.
Yeah.
So if you haven't seen some of those other episodes, go back and watch them and see how they connect. And so we appreciate you joining in today.
Just get your learning on, right?
Yeah, and be sure to check out the resources. We'll post in the online about where you can find more information that Encore shared with us today, and
his blog as well. And be sure to check out LaidOffLife.co, and we're on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram.
That's right. All right, so until next time.